got my line scribered on, and I'm going to reduce this area, making sure that it's in fact, yeah, okay. So I'm going to be reducing this area right here. So this, between this line and this line, is going to be reduced. And I've got I drew this as a section to kind of figure out what I was going to do. So this is what it represents right here. I don't know if you can see, but it's going to dip down. At its thinnest point, it's going to be roughly about 1/4 of an inch in thickness in this area right here, and it's going to come back up. This center area is going to be reduced down to about 3/8 of an inch, and then there's going to be some kind of a decorative motif or medallion or something. I haven't quite decided what is going on there just yet. And then this is going to be the margin. So it's picture this like a plate, if you will. Then it's going to have a border, some kind of a detail on the border of a beading detail. So the first stage is to reduce the waist, shape the dish. Then I can start to apply pieces of onyx. So that's the first stage. So let's just get into this and see what this stuff. Okay, so I'm back the next day, and I'm still continuing on with this. So I've gone in a little bit cautiously at first with this material. I find that there's a relearning curve with it whenever you switch from one material to another. And it usually takes a few days to get up to speed with a material, even when you're familiar with it. So it's always best to approach a material with a bit of caution. And once you're up to feeling confident in yourself, then you can speed things up. So I'm actually using a bullnose right now. Bullnoses are a handy way of removing waste in a controlled manner, since the tip of the bullnose kind of clears the way, but the sides prevent it from digging in too deep. So it kind of removes things almost like a medieval adze, in a way that it takes the waste off in a controlled manner without going too deep. So it can be a very handy way of often sculptors will use it for removing a lot of waste and shaping stone. I think that in our toolkit we probably have as many different bullnose chisels as we have square chisels, all kinds of different diameters and widths, and they're really quite an invaluable tool. I think they're highly underrated. Most sets that I've ever seen, they will often have just one or two different bullnoses in the standard set. But in my opinion, an ideal set, you probably want about 10 or 12 different bullnoses, different radiuses. Sometimes they're nice to have them a shallow curve. You can see these two. I don't know if you can make that out, but these two bullnoses have slightly different curves to them. Some of them will be more round. Some of them will be just slightly curved, and that allows you to shape in different radiuses. And it's particularly handy when you're doing detail carving, such as leaf work, because you might want some to get in deep and tuck right in, and then others you might just want to have just a very shallow curve to your profile. So that's something to keep in mind for anybody that wants to set themselves up with a set of chisels, that you may want to allow for some extra square chisels to purchase, and shape extra ones into bullnoses. And bullnoses always start out as there's no difference between them and a square chisel. They just have they're ground into a round as opposed to a flat edge. So these stock chisels, at one time or another, because chisels are always being, especially when you're dealing with forged chisels, they're always being modified and changed. As you can see, that the length is different, and that may have been from the very beginning, or that may have been because one had a tip that snapped off, which is quite common with forged chisels, is where if the temper extends half an inch, 3/4 of an inch on the end of it. Sometimes if the temper is a little bit too sharp between the transition between the soft metal and the tempered metal, then the tip will snap off. And so what you do is you just you grind it, and sometimes you get a double temper. So you'll have a first set of temper, and then you'll actually get a second set of temper as it goes through to different colors. And the second set will sometimes be a little bit more robust because it's a little bit softer, not quite as fragile. It's quite possible to get a very hard temper that's so hard that the minute you try to strike it, it'll just snap. So ideally you want a temper that is in between the two. So that's why you'll see some of our chisels that we have here, different lengths, different shapes, because they have gone through a lot of different incarnations. A lot of times they'll start out much wider, will be drawn out to a wider, and then as you sharpen them and as they go through their life, they get slightly narrower, closer to the shaft. And this chisel here is getting to a point where it's probably due to be reforged. It's still perfectly good, but once the temper's worn out of this one, then, when it no longer holds an edge anymore, then it's time to throw it back into the fire. So this is why when you're dealing with forged chisels, you need a lot more of them to allow for that. Whereas the commercially available chisels, they have a tungsten tip, and once the tungsten tip is worn out, then the chisels it's done. But as long as the tungsten tip is there, they won't change any more than what you got. What you see is what you get. So that that's its lifespan. After that, it's, unless you've got the abilities to braze on a new tip, the tool is done. So that's the difference between a forged chisel and a mass-produced modern day commercial chisel. It's that's you really need assistance, I'd say, if you're unfamiliar with it yourself. That's why with the training, part of the training is familiarization of all the different tools and how to make them, how to service them. That's why one of the reasons why an apprenticeship lasts so long. I probably hadn't mentioned this before, but my apprenticeship was 7 years, which is a lot longer than average, but it's that reason because I've learned a lot more than any one particular type of an apprenticeship. The scope of my training is vast, so it's equivalent to like a specialized doctor. And you've got your basic medical training, but for somebody to become a specialist, you have to spend a lot more time. So my training ranges everything from heritage masonry, which is what I attended college for. That's the restoration of old buildings, and also doing modern masonry as well, brick and block, which is what I started out with. And then that led into stonework, stone cutting. And then I signed up with my apprenticeship and spent 7 years working on the most incredible projects, stuff I could never have imagined that I would have been working on. And it's been, I'm still here. Same shop, same boss, same wonderful projects. It really is a magical world, this world of stone. To be introduced and trained and taught the knowledge that has existed for 1,000 years of European history, and be both trusted and instilled with the responsibility of maintaining that knowledge is quite the privilege. As much as I've worked extremely hard on it, it's a very rare number of people that are welcomed into it. I have great appreciation and respect for all those. I've seen others on YouTube that are carrying on the knowledge and the practice and adapting it to modern paces and modern demands, and I've got a lot of respect because they're doing very fine work, and it's wonderful to see, because in this part of the world it doesn't exist. I'm the last. I've seen in my career many shops just disappear, and they're all being taken over by CNC water jet processing, which requires none of the skills that a stonecutter possesses. All you need to know is coding and programming, machine operation. It's a terrible shame. It's a massive cultural loss. A lot of people don't really appreciate the significance of the times that we're in. It's more than just a shift in an industry. We're talking about one of the oldest professions on the planet. Something that has been closely guarded by the guilds since the very founding of civilization. So it's wonderful that I can share this with people who have no knowledge of it, like I didn't before I got into it, because it is fascinating, and it helps you to appreciate looking at all the incredible buildings that are around us all over the world, in all cultures, and have a better appreciation of maybe how they were done and the tremendous skill that's involved behind those that made them. Every time I look at a building, I think about the people that were involved in making it. The nameless people, the people that will never be memorialized on any kind of plaque or a name. The people that actually made it. That's what I think of. Not the people that reside in it, but the people that actually made the building. They're the ones to be truly credited, because if it wasn't for them, the buildings never would have been built. It's fun when you're classically trained to exercise those skills once in a while. They do tend to get rusty if you're not using them. And there's not a lot of demand for projects at this pace these days.